Hello, Living as a Disciple students, and welcome to your final ed puzzle of the year. Let's not waste any time with jokes. Let's get started. I know you want to get through this. You are ready to be out of here. Let's go. Lab 4, day 4 homework, Laudato Si. Say, what is that? Well, what it is a papal encyclical, a social encyclical, written by Pope Francis in 2015. This document challenges all people to protect our common home by bringing the human family together to seek sustainable development. So if you remember an old vocab word, social encyclical is a letter written from the Pope to the entire church. He's challenging all of us to come together in order to protect the earth. Laudato Si means on care for our common home. And what he does is he provides a spiritual perspective to the issue of climate change. He's not writing from a scientific perspective. He's saying spiritually, how do we combat climate change? Spiritually, how do we view this consequence that's happening? One of the things about Pope Francis, before he was Pope, he actually got his undergrad degree, I think, in chemistry. So he has a science background, and he embraces, in the letter, embraces the current science. It says we ought to trust what science says, and 97% of scientists agree that climate change is caused by humans. So he makes climate change an official part of Catholic teaching. By embracing the science on it, he basically says this is an issue that we as Christians, that we as Catholics must be passionate about. This is an issue that we must address and combat with the rest of the entire human family. All right, on your last one, I got a long thing for you to read. There will be a question about this after you are done reading. So go ahead and read and be ready to answer a question about it. All right, so one of the things that Pope Francis talks about is that we are a human family meant to live together in harmony. And that climate change really is a symptom of a bigger problem. And that's that we as humanity have broken relationships. And everything's connected. Right? The way I treat others is indicative of how I treat the earth. The way I treat the earth is indicative of how I treat others. And one of the things that Pope Francis says, and I love this, is that the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor are intimately intertwined. That so often when we pursue profit, when we pursue money, when we pursue power, the things that get hurt are the earth and the poor. And climate change itself will disproportionately affect the poor and the vulnerable. I think it's something like half of the world's population lives near the ocean, lives near bodies of water. Well, if the seas start to rise, right, the rich and the powerful are going to be able to move. They're going to be able to go other places. It's the poor and those without resources. They're going to be the ones most affected by droughts. They're going to be the ones most affected by hurricanes. They're going to be the ones most affected by the deteriorating climate, the deteriorating environment. So, as a human family, Pope Francis says we must come together in dialogue, embrace hope, and seek an ecological conversion, a change in how we treat the earth. So we all have to come together in dialogue. And one of the things that I love that he says is, he says, you can still do the little things. I think so. And I think even after watching that documentary, you can feel like we can't do anything. But what he says is small actions, whether it's small actions taken to recycle or to reduce what you use, foster conversion. They foster a change in our heart towards how we treat others and how we treat the environment. And that this can have a big impact if it's done by lots of people. The other thing that Laudato Si does is it kind of challenges our current culture. It says that our current ecological crisis, that climate change, is a result of a throwaway culture. It's the word that Pope Francis uses, a culture that likes to use things and then throw them away once they're done, whether that's people, right? And that could be talked about We talk about all how we use people and then like to throw them away at times. Or things, right? Think about how much trash you and your family produce. And what do? We put it in a big bucket and we put it out by our street and we say, someone else deal with this, right? And then you never have to think about it. But can you imagine if you saw how much trash you produced each year? The sight would be astounding and probably make you want to change. But the way our culture is set up is I don't want to have to think about that. He also says, and again, he's a scientist. He likes technology, but he says that we over-rely on it and embrace it before we think about its consequences. That science is great. It allows us to move forward, but we have to take some time to think about what the consequences be or to think about the effects that embracing technology will have. He says that we have a materialistic view of the world that's driven by profit, not people. That's been a theme of our entire semester, really. That too often we look at things in terms of profit instead of people. Finally, he says we fundamentally misunderstand human life. We seek exploitation rather than harmony. It's all about how can I get ahead? How can I get to this next step? How can I get more stuff? How can I get more money? How can I get more power? Rather than how can I live in relationship with those around me? So really, we end today right where we started all the way back in August, that humans were created to live in loving relationship with one another. Climate change, just like any other justice issue, is a fundamental misunderstanding of what we were created for. We were created for harmony. So anytime we seek something that's not harmony, others get hurt, the earth gets hurt, and that's why you have sin and injustice in the world. So Mr. Schonhoff just summed up everything that's bad in the world. Right? It's the fact that we don't live in loving relationship with one another. That's all it goes back to. So in your own lives, tell someone you love them today. Tell someone close to you. Don't take them for granted. As always, like, comment, and subscribe.